Denis looked at the road sign and turned off the highway onto a dirt road that led him to the village with the funny name Lopukhovo. Many years ago, he came here with his father and mother to visit his grandfather, Pyotr, his father's father. Denis happily swam in a small picturesque lake, played with his grandfather's pirate, a cute shaggy dog, and had fun with some restless cats. His grandpa sometimes rode him on a big horse, as it seemed to Denis at the time. The horse's name was Roshinante. Roshinante was an ordinary collective farm horse with no features of elite breeds, but he was obedient and hard-working, and Pyotr Ivanovich loved him for that. Dad, why did you name your horse Rosinante? Nikolai, Denis's father, wondered. Because I look like Don Quixote. Pyotr Ivanovich answered his son, smiling. By the way, that's what they call me in the village. Uncle Pyotr Don Quixote. Tall and thin, he did resemble the famous literary character, and his beard and mustache completed his image. Nikolai laughed at the words of his father, who never lost heart, but Marina, Denis's mother, only wrinkled her nose with displeasure. She didn't enjoy this god-forsaken village, and came here looking as if she had to serve a sentence. Marina also didn't like her husband's father. She didn't understand his desire to lead a rural lifestyle. After his wife's death, they suggested that Pyotr sell the house and buy a small apartment in the city. Try to persuade your father, Marina insisted, pressing her husband. After all, we live in a regional center, which means prospects for us and our son. Besides, we will inherit his apartment. Since you have no other relatives, we will get your father's property, and it's even better to register the apartment in Denis's name. He is only 3 years old now. How many years will it take before he grows up? For all this time, Pyotr Ivanovich will live happily in his apartment. And no one will kick him out even further. So ask him to sell his house while the village property is still in demand. There is no point for him to live there alone. In the city, they are building up 3 districts at once. We could snatch a great apartment. Marina, my father won't do that, Nikolai sighed. He's used to living in the countryside. He doesn't like the city. When I decided to look for happiness in the city after school, he just shook his head. Of course, he supported me, but added that my true home was only in the village, and he would always wait for me there. Wait for you? Marina grinned. Well, yes, he never liked me, and once I heard he complained about me to his neighbor and called me the spoiled girl. Marusya? Stop it, Nikolai asked, wincing. He knew that Marina had a sharp temper, but he believed that she would change and find an approach to his father for the sake of their love. I'm trying, Marina sobbed, but he still doesn't want to communicate with me. And don't call me Marusya. I'm not some village girl. My sweet girl. Nikolai tried to reassure his wife. You're smart. Well, be patient a little. I love you so much. I love you too, honey. I only ask you to talk to your father. Nikolai talked, but, as he expected, Pyotr Ivanovich refused his son's offer. No, Nikolai, don't persuade me. I am not a city dweller. I am a villager in both soul and habits. I like it here. There is silence, peace, and no fuss. So good. Besides, I decided to buy a mare. I even had my eye on one, or maybe I'll take a stallion instead. There is also one. And you live in the city as you like. Just don't forget me. Come here even for the whole summer. My grandson will grow up soon. Imagine how much freedom he will have here. Having learned about her father-in-law's decision, Marina just laughed, as if she had nothing to do but spend the whole summer in this wilderness. What next? Would she want to give up the comfort of city life? It was enough for her that she got involved with a village guy and even married him, but she would never support his desire to return to the village, even for short. However, life adjusted Marina's plans, and she had to give in to her husband's desire to stay with his father. That happened after Denis fell ill, and doctors recommended that he spend some time in the village, breathing fresh air and eating healthy food. That time was the happiest for the boy. His grandfather doted on his little grandson, rode him on the horse he finally bought, and took him to a small lake where the kids swam. Denis began to recover quickly. His cheeks flushed, and he gladly ate every meal served. The boy thought that would last forever. For some reason, Nikolai decided to leave for the city and took his family with him. The upset boy cried a lot and fell asleep in the back seat. He didn't understand what was happening. Later, when Marina told her grown-up son about what happened in those days, Denis learned that his father had quarreled with his grandfather Pyotr, and he kicked them out of the house. What happened next destroyed their family. Having lost control, Nikolai caused a fatal car accident. People died. Nikolai was also injured. But Marina and Denis were almost unharmed. The police took Nikolai from the hospital, and Denis never saw him again. Nikolai served 2 years of his sentence. But one winter, he got pneumonia and died in a prison hospital bed. Marina turned to Pyotr Ivanovich for help a few times, but he did not forgive his daughter-in-law. He blamed her for what happened and forbade her and little Denis from appearing on his doorstep. Marina sold her apartment to pay off her debts, took her son, and moved to another region. Time went on. Marina got married more than once, and each new stepfather treated the boy worse and worse. Therefore, when he turned 17, he ran away from home, leaving his mother with another husband. Denis didn't want to live in a family where no one needed him. Marina didn't even notice that. She was too busy with her personal life. She was never tired of looking for her happiness and believed she would find it one day. Then you understand that leaving home is not so easy. What will you live on? Denis's friend Alexei asked him. I don't know yet. Denis shook his head. But I won't stay with them. I'll survive somehow and start earning money. I'll get a job as a loader or ask someone to hire me as an apprentice in a car repair shop. So, I'll get back on my feet. I won't die of hunger. Where will you spend nights? Will you sleep at the station? Alexei grinned. Maybe at the station for now. Denis nodded. Well, let it be. I'm not a weak sister. I can handle it. Okay, wait. Alexei patted him on the shoulder. Here are the keys to our cottage house. It's autumn. No one will go there until spring. Live there. The bus runs regularly and the fare costs a penny. It's Route 104. I hope you won't be scared of rural life. Thank you, Alex. Denis hugged his friend sincerely. And the rural life won't scare me. When I was a child, my parents took me to my grandfather's house in the village. We even lived there for some time. Why don't you want to go to him? Alexei was surprised. My grandfather died a long time ago. His house fell apart. My mother went to the funeral but didn't take me with her. I was still at school at that time, and we didn't communicate. I thought he was good, but he turned out to be cruel. You see, Alex, if my grandfather had not kicked us out of his house that day, everything could have been different. And I would have had a completely different life. There is no need to talk about it. Wait, Alexei interrupted his friend. But if your grandfather died, you shouldn't be angry with him. Besides, he left you a house. You are his only heir. Your grandpa hardly took the property with him. Alex, I don't have any rights to his house. No documents, nothing. And I don't need his wreck. Can you imagine what an abandoned house in the Russian outback looks like? No, I don't even want to talk about it. But thank you for your cottage house from the bottom of my heart. Okay, you're welcome. Alexei patted his friend on the shoulder. Please live as long as you need. Denis smiled. But for the first year after leaving home, he had to survive rather than live. The guy took all the offered work. It happened that he slept only 3 or 4 hours a day and ate street food or instant noodles. But he never lost hope and believed he would be lucky one day. Alexei sometimes came to visit Denis. He brought some food and they had a real feast. Listen, you cannot live like that. Alexei tried to persuade his friend. Look, you will soon become skinny as a rail, and you need to rest? Or are you going to ruin yourself completely? No. What are you talking about? Denis answered. I'm not going to. In addition, I began to allow myself to get enough sleep. I take breaks a few times a week. I go to bed at 8 in the evening and sleep until almost 9. That's the days when I have shifts at the warehouse. So my regime is in perfect order. Please don't worry. Yeah, don't worry, Alexei grumbled. You'll make me go crazy. Denis just laughed in response. He was not used to being depressed. Some years later, Denis became an adult. Although he never managed to get rich, he had enough to live on. Denis worked in a private furniture workshop, making wooden tables, chairs, and garden furniture. Denis lived in a rented apartment, which he paid for himself. The guy also bought an inexpensive car and was very proud of it. The only thing he was missing was a family. His mother forgot about her son and was living her life. Her new husband was rich and she could afford to vacation at resorts a few times a year. Marina rarely called Denis, but the conversation didn't flow. She wasn't interested in how he lived. But one day, Denis called her himself. "Hi, Mom. I don't want to bother you, but I'm very sick. I am at the hospital with double pneumonia. Could you come, please?" "Oh, son, I'm so sorry," Marina exclaimed and theatrically rolled her eyes as if Denis could see her. "I'm away now. We are at a ski resort in Bulgaria, Bansko. Have you heard of it? It's so great here." Without interrupting, Denis listened to his mother's enthusiastic outpourings and said quietly, "I'm happy for you." "Oh, son." Marina came to her senses and sobbed. "Well, do you want me to drop everything and come?" No, don't. Okay, I'm sorry for upsetting you. It's hard for me to speak. Bye." "Bye, son," Marina answered. She hung up the phone and turned to her husband, who entered the room. "Leonid, I forgot where I put the plane tickets." "Don't worry, I have them," he answered calmly. Well, yes, don't worry," Marina mimicked him. "Tomorrow evening we are flying to Bulgaria. I don't want to miss the plane or lose our tickets. I love Bansko so much, and I cannot wait to visit there again. Lord, I don't have all my things packed yet." Marina hurried back to her preparations. She had no remorse and didn't want to postpone the trip for her sick son. That was why Marina told him she had already left. After all, he was an adult and no longer needed her. Besides, his body was young. That meant he could cope with the disease. But if she didn't go on vacation, she might lose this opportunity for a long time. 5 minutes later, she forgot about her son's call and set to pleasant chores. At that time, Denis was lying in his bed, looking at the white hospital ceiling and thinking with sadness that Alexei was the only person in his life whom he could trust. But his friend got married 3 years ago and left the city. He recently became a father and also had no time for Denis. The door suddenly opened. Alexei appeared in the room with a package in his hands. "Alex?" Denis sat up in bed, surprised. "Lie down, please." Alexei stopped him. "Oh, Den, you didn't even tell me, and you call yourself my friend. How do you know? I came to invite you to the christening. I want you to baptize my little Anastasia, and I learned from your neighbors an ambulance took you away." "I'm sorry, I let you down," Denis smiled weakly. "I will become your daughter's godfather with pleasure, if you can wait till I get home. I'll wait. Here are your vitamins. Get better. And give me the keys to your apartment. I need somewhere to live until you recover. I'll bring you home-cooked lunches and all that. What about your family?" "I came together with them, with my wife and daughter, so we'll stay with you." Denis was happy. He soon got better. And when he recovered, he became the godfather of little Anastasia. 6 months later, Denis's mother called him. He didn't expect a call from her and was very surprised when he heard sobs on the phone. "Son, I need your help. I'm dying. I was diagnosed with cancer. I don't know what to do. Treatment requires money. But I have nothing." "Wait, Mom," Denis said, stunned by such news. "What about Leonid? He makes good money. He left me for some young girl and even managed to get a divorce. I didn't get anything from the court, just an apartment." Marina sobbed. "And he went to live in Italy. Son, please help me. I have no one else to turn to." "I'll think of something, Mom," Denis promised. He stayed up until the morning, racking his brains over how to help his mother. He had no savings, and his only property was an old Zhiguli car that cost a penny. And then Denis thought about the village house that once belonged to his grandfather. Maybe he could sell it. As soon as dawn broke, Denis left the city and headed to the village of Lopukovo, hoping that something would come of his idea. The evening of the next day, he drove into the village and looked around in confusion, not knowing what to do. He didn't remember what street his grandfather's house was on. After driving around the alleys, Denis stopped at a small house near which an old lady was standing. Dennis got out of the car, said hello, and began asking about the house he wanted to find. Oh, do you need Don Quixote? That's his hut. Dennis turned to where the lady indicated. The house looked quite lived in, although Dennis expected it had completely fallen apart over the years. Wait, does someone live there? Dennis was surprised and thought his grandfather sold it to someone before his death. Don Quixote lives there. Don Quixote? Dennis couldn't understand anything. Pyotr Ivanovich, the neighbor patiently explained. Are you his relative? You are too young for his son, although you look a lot like him. But as far as I know, Nikolai died. Wait, you're his grandson? Dennis, right? I'm Zenaida Pavlovna, his neighbor. You probably don't remember me. Well, yes, you were too little, and now you've grown so big. How are you doing? Why don't you visit your grandfather? He would be happy to see you. Wait, Dennis's astonishment knew no bounds. Is he alive? But my mom said that he died many years ago. Marina? Oh, she probably remained the same bitch as she was. Why do you say that? Dennis was indignant. Well, what else can I say? I remember her, the spoiled girl. She always turned up her nose. And Nikolai was good and kind. He loved her but wanted to stay with his father. Your dad even found a job here. But Marina told him that she would file for divorce if he did not leave for the city with her. Nikolai agreed, although he didn't want to go, as if he knew something terrible would happen. When Marina caused an accident, Nikolai took the fall. Even though she was driving, Nikolai went to prison for her and died there. Marina never even visited him. Only his father went to see him, and she didn't even let him come to see you. I remember he was so upset. What are you saying? Dennis felt the ground crumble under his feet. He realized that his mother always lied to him. She blamed his father and grandfather, but she was the one to blame for everything. And his grandfather was alive. That's what I'm saying, the talkative old lady insisted. I know everything. Your grandfather told me about it. He spent so much time looking for you, and shed so many tears for his son. Zenaida! Dennis heard a stern shout from behind. What did I tell you? Dennis turned around and saw a tall, thin senior man who looked like Don Quixote. Grandpa, Dennis suddenly said in a hoarse voice. Dennis, my grandson. The man stepped towards him and hugged him tightly, hiding the tears that flashed in his eyes. You have arrived, my dear. I was waiting for you so much, and I believed that day would come. Zenaida looked at the grandfather and grandson, wiping her tears with her apron. What a blessing! She kept on repeating. And when Pyotr and Denis disappeared into the house, she ran to tell her friends the news. Meanwhile, Denis told his grandfather he thought he had died long ago. He talked about how he lived and asked his grandfather about everything. He even remembered Rocinante. My horse is alive, Pyotr smiled. He's old but is not going to die yet. I'll show him to you. Denis smiled but suddenly turned gloomy. He remembered why he came there and told his grandfather about it without hiding. Marina is sick and needs money. Pyotr Ivanovich repeated Denis's words. How much? Denis named the amount. Yeah, that's a lot. The man shook his head, stood up and went to the sideboard. He took out a small box and handed it to his grandson. Well, there's even more than you need. I saved it up, I don't know why. I just had nowhere to spend it. It would be nice if she could get treatment. Grandpa, after everything she has done, Dennis was amazed. Well, you cannot return to the past, but we all have our understanding of good and evil. I only ask you to come back. Live with me for a while. Please make me a little happier. I'll be back, Grandpa, I will. Marina met her son with tears in her eyes. Thank you, son. I knew you would do that. But I didn't know you at all, Mom, Dennis answered. And you should say thank you not to me, but to Grandpa. Yes, to Grandfather Pyotr. You said he died a long time ago. Oh, Mom. And my father was not to blame for anything. On the contrary, he took responsibility for your sin. Son. I didn't want you to think badly of me, Marina said, hanging her head low. I never thought so, although you did nothing to make me think well of you. As Grandpa says, we all have our understanding of good and evil. After 3 years, Denis lived in the village with his grandfather and was quite happy. His wedding with Zinaida's granddaughter Catherine was about to take place. She was a kind and beautiful girl who loved him very much, and he reciprocated her feelings. Alexei and his family also came to his friend's wedding. He often visited Denis and his grandfather. The guys even decided to start their business in the village, to create a recreation center on the shore of a rural lake. Alexei was also going to move to the countryside. His wife and daughter liked it very much, but Marina couldn't come to her son's wedding. After recovery, she was busy looking for a worthy man to support her, but her health was no longer the same, and her age was getting in the way, so it became more difficult for her to continue her search. For some reason, Marina was popular among drunkards and loafers, who also dreamed of living at the expense of others. However, she did not despair, and believed that happiness would come. But where was it?